other side.
My name is Maya Thompson, and for 29 years, I've been the shadow in the corner of my family's spotlight, in the sprawling, noisy gatherings of the Thompson clan Thanksgiving feasts, Christmas mornings, summer barbecues. I was always the one pushed to the edges, seated at the kids' table long after I'd outgrown it. My presence barely registered. At 29, I was still just Meyer, the cousin from a nowhere town in Idaho, the one with no husband, no kids, no Instagram aesthetic to flaunt to my aunts, uncles, and cousins. I was invisible, a footnote in their story of success and ambition. They couldn't have known that I was the CEO of CipherShield, a cybersecurity company that protected some of America's biggest corporations. I'd built an empire in secret, and I liked it that way until I didn't. I live in Ashton, Idaho, a place so small you'd miss it if you blinked while driving through. My house is modest, a single story with a creaky porch and a view of the Teton foothills. My only companion is Juniper, a tabby cat I rescued from a ditch 3 years ago. I work from a home office. My desk cluttered with monitors, coffee mugs, and post-it notes scrolled with code snippets. To my family, my life was a mystery they didn't care to solve. Maya's probably unemployed, my cousin Ethan once said at a family reunion, laughing over his craft beer. What do you even do out there in the middle of nowhere? I'd smiled, shrugged, and changed the subject. They assumed I was scraping by, maybe freelancing or waitressing. The truth was, I was running a company that generated millions in revenue, but I let my Sarah Nguyen, take the public stage. I preferred the shadows. They were safer. Family gatherings were a ritual of exclusion. The Thompsons were a loud, proud bunch, each member eager to outshine the others. Ethan, the golden boy, ran a hedge fund in Chicago, his Tesla parked ostentatiously in every driveway. His sister, Lauren, was a corporate lawyer in New York. Her Instagram a curated gallery of power suits and rooftop cocktails. My other cousins had their own claims to fame. Caleb, a cardiologist in Boston, Mia, a startup founder in San Francisco, and Tara, a fashion influencer with 1 million followers. I was the odd one out, the one who didn't belong in their narrative of triumph. At weddings, I was left out of group photos. At Christmas, my gifts were afterthoughts, generic gift cards or candles no one wanted. Once, during a family road trip to Yellowstone, they forgot me at a gas station in Montana. I sat on a curb for 3 hours, eating stale chips from the convenience store, until my Aunt Linda finally called. "Oh, Meyer, we thought you were in the back with the kids," she said, laughing like it was a charming oversight. I was 25. I didn't mind. Not at first. Being invisible gave me freedom. I could watch, listen, and build my own world without their judgment. But there was one person I couldn't ignore. Zoe, my youngest cousin. She was 16, quiet like me, with a spark in her eyes that reminded me of myself at her age. She wanted to study computer science, but her parents, my Uncle Greg and Aunt Carla, were drowning in debt. Their diner barely staying afloat. College was a pipe dream for Zoe. So I stepped in. I set up an anonymous scholarship through CipherShield, covering her tuition and books. I never told her it was me. I didn't need her gratitude. It was enough to know she'd have a chance to escape the weight of our family's expectations. The moment that changed everything came at my grandmother's 80th birthday party. It was held at Athens Mansion in Chicago, a sprawling estate with marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a view of Lake Michigan that screamed wealth. The family arrived in their finest designer dresses, tailored suits, diamonds glinting under chandeliers. I wore a thrift store black dress, my hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. I didn't belong, and they made sure I felt it. When the catering staff ran short, my Aunt Linda handed me a stack of dirty plates. "Meyer, be a dear and take care of these," she said, her tone implying it was my natural role. I spent 2 hours in the kitchen, scrubbing pots while my cousins posed for photos with Grandma, their laughter echoing through the house. I was invisible, As always, I didn't stay for the cake. I slipped out the back door, drove to a motel near O'Hare, and checked in for the night. No one noticed I was gone. No texts, no calls, no "where's Meyer?" It wasn't until 3 weeks later that Lauren sent a message. "Hey, where'd you go at Grandma's party? We missed you." The words felt hollow, a formality. I didn't reply. I was done trying to be seen by people who refused to look. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I wasn't just Meyer, the quiet cousin from Idaho. I was the mind behind CypherShield, a company I'd started in my dorm room at MIT, coding late into the night while my roommates partied. By 25, I'd built a cybersecurity empire, our software protecting banks, hospitals, and tech giants from hackers. I kept my name out of the press, letting Sarah handle the TED Talks and CNBC interviews. It wasn't about humility. It was about control. I didn't want my family's expectations, their demands, their sudden interest in a life they'd ignored for years. I wanted to build something real, something mine. Then came the cybertech. It was a Monday morning in February, and I was in my office, sipping coffee and debugging code, when the news hit. A sophisticated group of hackers had breached half a dozen major corporations, including Athens Hedge Fund, Thompson Capital, client data, bank accounts, investment portfolios. Social security numbers was exposed, ready to be sold on the dark web. The family group chat exploded. Ethan was frantic, ranting about incompetent IT teams and the millions he stood to lose. Lauren suggested hiring a top-tier cybersecurity firm. "We need someone like CypherShield," she texted. "They're the best in the business. Ethan, can you get them?" I stared at the message, my coffee growing cold. For a moment, I considered staying silent. Let them figure it out. Let Athens' empire crumble under the weight of his arrogance. But then I thought of Zoe, of the scholarship I'd funded, of the clients who trusted Thompson Capital with their life savings. I couldn't let innocent people pay for my family's mistakes. So I made a decision. I opened my laptop, drafted an email from my official CypherShield account, and signed it, Maya Thompson, CEO. Ethan called within 10 minutes, his voice a mix of shock and desperation. "Meyer, you're with CypherShield. How did we not know this?" I could hear him recalculating, trying to reconcile the cousin he dismissed with the expert he now needed. "We're in deep trouble," he said. "Name your price." I didn't want his money. I agreed to help, but on my terms. I flew to Chicago the next day, not as the forgotten cousin, but as Maya Thompson, the woman who could save his company. Walking into Thompson Capital's boardroom was surreal. The sleek office, with its glass walls and city views, was filled with executives who treated me like a stranger, a professional they had to impress, not the cousin they'd ignored for years. I worked around the clock, rebuilding their security protocols, patching vulnerabilities, and tracing the hackers to a server in Belarus. It was grueling, but I thrived under the pressure. By the end of the week, the breach was contained, the data secured, and Athens clients were safe. The boardroom was silent when I finished my presentation, my cousin staring at me like I was a ghost who'd suddenly materialized. "You're a genius," Ethan said, his voice grudging. I didn't smile. "I've always been here," I said. "You just didn't notice." The story broke in Forbes a month later. The invisible CEO, Maya Thompson, the mastermind behind CypherShield. The article was a deep dive into my life mid at 17. Coding CypherShield's first algorithm in a dorm room. Choosing a small-town life over Silicon Valley glitz. It praised my decision to stay out of the spotlight, to let my work speak for itself. My phone buzzed with notifications from the family group chat. Congratulations, apologies, invitations to catch up. My Aunt Linda called, gushing about how proud she was. Ethan texted, suggesting we collaborate on a new venture. Lauren posted the article on her Instagram, captioning it, "So proud of my cousin Meyer." I didn't respond. Their sudden interest wasn't about me. It was about what I could do for them. They invited me to a reconciliation dinner at Lauren's penthouse in New York. I went, not because I needed their approval, but because I wanted to see their faces when I laid my cards on the table. The apartment with stunning white walls, modern art, a view of the Hudson River. The family was there, dressed to impress, their smiles to wide, their voices to warm. Ethan talked about his latest investment ideas, hinting I could fund them. Lauren mentioned a charity gala, suggesting I sponsor it. My Uncle Greg pitched a real estate project, his eyes gleaming with hope. I listened, sipping sparkling water, letting them weave their webs. Then I pulled out a contract drafted by my lawyer, Priya Patel. It was straightforward. I'd invest $100,000 in their collective projects, but only if each of them paid back what they owed me. Not just money, the small loans I'd given over the years, the favors I'd done, but the debts of respect they'd withheld, the gas station in Montana, the dishes at grandma's party, the years of being invisible. It wasn't about the money, it was about accountability. The room went quiet. Ethan laughed, thinking it was a joke. Lauren called me petty. Aunt Linda accused me of holding a grudge. No one signed. I stood up, my voice calm, but unyielding. I didn't come here to be loved. I said, I came to remind you that I was never invisible. You just didn't look. I left a USB drive on the table, a gift. I said, it contains CipherShield's latest nonprofit software, designed to protect community organizations from cyber threats, free of charge. It was my way of giving back, not to them, but to the world they never understood. As I walked to my car, I heard footsteps behind me. It was Zoe, her face streaked with tears. She threw her arms round me, sobbing. Thank you, she said, for the scholarship, for everything. I know it was you. You're the only one who never gave up on me. I hugged her tightly, my own eyes stinging. For the first time in years, I felt something like peace. I didn't need the family's approval. I had Zoe's gratitude, and that was enough. I drove away from New York with a smile, not because I'd won, but because I was free. I didn't need to prove myself to them anymore. I never had. 6 months later, CipherShield launched the Invisible Girl Fund, a scholarship for young women of color from rural areas who wanted to study technology. It was named for me, for the girl I'd been, for the girls who felt unseen but burned with potential. Zoe was the first recipient. Her acceptance letter framed on my office wall. My story isn't about revenge or redemption. It's about realizing that your worth doesn't depend on who sees you. It's about building something real, something lasting, in a world that tries to define you by its own narrow standards. I'm Maya Thompson, and I've stopped asking permission to shine.